Alright, hello again all, my name is Eddie, and welcome to my 700 subscriber special. First off, I want to thank you all for getting me to 700 subscribers. Your support honestly means a lot, and I'm glad that there are people who actually like and watch my videos. I wanted to do another talking video for my subscriber special on a different Hydra topic, since I'm basically the Hydra guy, or at least I definitely feel like that's what I'm most known for in my videos. With that being said, the topic of today's video will be my personal opinion on the Hydra Splatlink's best maps. I will only be covering these maps in their Splat Zones and Tower Control versions since that's what I play the most. I'll only be talking about the few maps that I really like, which is about 6 of them, so I guess this is technically a top 6 favorite maps video of mine, though they're not really in any particular order. Alright, let's get into it. I'll be starting by first listing off all the maps I like and going from there. Also, just a small disclaimer, since I do play a Hydra, I definitely have a strong sense of backline bias, so don't expect a neutral review of these maps or anything like that, because I'm going to be going specifically over what I personally like. Okay, so the maps that I like the most and would rather play on would have to be Mincemeat Metalworks, Brinewater Springs, Mahi Mahi Resort, Crab Leg Capital, Robo Ramen, and I guess Marlin Airport too. Alright, now that I've listed out all the maps, I'm going to be talking a little bit about each one individually and going into why I like them. Beginning with Mincemeat Metalworks. Again, no particular order. Okay, so for Mincemeat Metalworks, I've gotta say, as a Hydra main, this map is honestly just so great, especially in Splat Zones. I know Mincemeat is a very hated map among frontlines and midliners alike, but for a ranged, slow weapon like the Hydra, it's honestly perfect since I can stand in one spot the whole time and cock block people from moving up. Zone is also pretty easy to paint from a safe distance, which makes my presence very annoying, especially since that 190p Booyah allows me to get a lot of specials. I would say I like this map specifically because it allows me to be able to play passively and aggressively whenever I please. If we're being pushed, I can just hang back and provide support and paint for my teammates while not being in a lot of danger, and when we're winning, I can move up onto the grates and put a lot of pressure on the enemies because of my range. As far as tower control goes, I would say I'm more indifferent to Mincemeat on it. Having to move around and actually utilize the entire map kinda sucks, since I feel like the rest of Mincemeat isn't really that good, but nonetheless, there is definitely still a strong sense of backline bias on either mode. The grate leading into each enemy's respective camp areas not being there is kind of a godsend during tower control though, since it allows me to shoot down people on the tower while not really giving them a chance to contest me unless they also have range. Alright, moving on to my next map, Brinewater Springs, which is another very good Splat Zones map for backlines like me, and I love it for very similar reasons to Mincemeat, except that it's even better than Mincemeat since I have the safety of the slanted ledge, which is very far up in the base, and makes it much harder for people to hit me. Unlike Mincemeat, where the camping spot can get kind of cramped, especially if people throw their specials at it, the camping spot in Brinewater is just huge, which makes it easier to stay safe and be a nuisance. If Mincemeat was a good map for providing support and painting, then Brinewater is even more so, especially since I can paint the zone from such a safe distance that no one can really contest with me unless they go up around our path and splat me directly. The zone's design for this map is super backline oriented, which I can imagine makes it a nightmare for frontliners. The slanted nature of the map does make it a little hard to push up as a Hydra, however. Since the middle of the map is far down below both spawns, finding a spot to camp while having control of the zone is a bit harder, since people can easily duck and cover my shots if I stand on the box in the middle of the zone. The only alternative is going up the slanted pathway, but doing that leaves the left drop open for enemies to attack us, so it's a bit hard to pick between those spots sometimes. As far as tower control goes, I also really like it on this map since I feel like it's just very open and clear on the entire tower path, making it easier for me to see things from the tower. Well, I don't have much else to say about that. I feel like it's definitely one of the better backline tower control maps. Alright, next up we have Mahi Mahi Resort. I feel like Mahi is actually a pretty well liked map in general, to be honest, which makes this not a surprising pick. I feel like it can be a good for any type of weapon, and I really like this map a lot in both zones and tower control. There are plenty of camping spots for backlines like me in zones, but there are also some pretty good spots for frontliners as well. Still, despite that, I feel like this map still allows you to be able to push back in if you just play your cards right. The camping spots for when your team is in control can be a little risky for a Hydra player, however, as you really only have either of the enemy stacks to move up. Or I suppose there's also the huge left side stack, but most of the time you can't really get too much value out of being there unless your teammates are applying pressure of their own from the other side of the map, which you obviously can't coordinate if you're playing in solo queue. For tower control, the tower path is pretty open, which makes it easy for me to be able to see all my threats. It's right up there with Brightwater Springs on being a super good backline tower control map, since there aren't many places that frontliners can approach you without being seen. This is a pretty solid map in my opinion, and I also really like the vibe and bright colors it brings as well, which is a plus. Moving right along, we have Crab Leg Capital. This is a really great zones map for me, and I feel like specifically out of all the backlines, the Hydra Splatling is definitely one of, if not the one it favors the most. The huge grate over the zone is a perfect dominating pressure spot, and since Hydras run lots of run speed, it makes traversing it super easy in case enemies throw bombs or their specials at you, which is something that other backlines, such as the E-Leader and the Explasher, can't do as effectively since they don't use run speed. I would also say the left path by the spawn is also great for being able to provide support to push back in, especially since it's another spot where it can be hard for foes to hit you unless they have range or go up and try to splat you manually. The tower control path is definitely favorable for the Hydra too, especially when you get past the second checkpoint and the tower runs over that uninkable pathway. It's super fun to use splatter color screen on this path since it creates a choke point that either forces enemies to go through the screen or just try to fire through it without being able to see. This pathway doesn't really allow for foes to go around the screen since it's pretty tight, so I would say it's a pretty good special for this mode. It's also fun to just utilize my range and rapid fire rate since most of the time, unless anyone can outrange me, the enemies usually can't do anything once the tower gets to this point. Second to last, we have Robo Ramen. So, I really like Robo Ramen for a similar reason to Mahi in that I feel like it can be favorable for all weapon rolls because of how the map wraps around itself and opens up flanking routes. However, it still works for backlines as well, since if you can keep an eye on those routes, you can splat people trying to be sneaky. I like this about Robo, and I find the map to be pleasant to play on for both zones and tower control. The platform right in front of the middle of the map is a great spot to camp from in zones, and also have a useful wall that can be used as a barrier against longer range weapons, which is good for me and other Hydra players. I can also stand on top of the wall and get some extra range myself while also being able to paint the zone from a safe distance and keep an eye on the right side flank route. And while the path and tower control does get a little cramped after the first checkpoint, I still think it works. Defending against enemy tower riders is also pretty good for the Hydra on this map, since foes would have to cross the grate leading into the first checkpoint in order to contest with me unless, again, they have ranged weapons. I guess they decided to keep the grate here in Robo unlike they did in Mincemeat. I'm not complaining though, I still really like the map. And last but not least, we have Marlin Airport. I wasn't really sure if I would put Marlin in my favorite category, but I decided to anyway just because I do like the map. Although I feel like every time I play, it is never in rotation, so I don't really get to see it much, but when I do play on it, I enjoy it. I really like the fans on the map and the small grate on the side of the pole next to the fan platforms in zones. I know that was a mouthful. It makes for a great camping point and painting spot that makes it hard for enemies to hit me. I also just feel like the openness of the middle of the map makes it more fun to play since there are a lot of places you can go to get cover, similar to Mahi. For tower control, the path is pretty good for the Hydra as well, and honestly it's pretty nice to see the whole map utilized since the rest of the map, even in the spawn, looks really nice. The vibe of Marlin is also super nice and bright too, which bumps it up a few points, which is I guess how it managed to get on my list. Okay, with all that being said, those are my favorite maps to play on as a Hydra Splatling main. If there are any other Hydra or backline mains watching, what did you think? Do you agree with any of my picks? Let me know in the comments. And thank you all so much again for 700 subscribers. I really do appreciate each and every one of you and look forward to making more videos like this in the future. Thank you, and have a good rest of your day.